The convergence of our voices is the song of our beauty. Many voices will speak here, the song woven through diverse notes. Welcome, Barbara Lewis, who is a singer doing wonderful projects. And
Thank you, Gail.
perhaps you could begin by telling us about your project to teach older women to sing.
Okay. Oh, I love that project. That's my weekly free Zoom warm up. Is that what you're talking about? Yes.
Yes.
My I guess my expertise in the last 10 years has been to work with women who are over 40. Quite often that means women who are over 60, but I make it very open so people who are 40 can join me too. I have a YouTube channel called Singing After 40, and I've worked with older women for quite a long time, and I realized that they have very specific needs. Part of the troubles for older women is the menopause, what that does to the throat. But that was not my main issue. My main issue was to get women who are older back into singing if they had left it, or to sing, period, as something as a way to express things that are inexpressible in other ways. So I teach privately, and I have taught in groups, but now I wanted to open it up to people who may not have the opportunity to have someone listen to them and encourage them. So now I do a weekly free Zoom group warm up, and anybody who's watching who would like to join may join if you're over 40. It's women and men, but mostly women. And we warm up together. At the end, we talk a little bit, so there's a bit of camaraderie, and you kind of get to know more about your voice in the comfort of your home. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So do you find that these are people who have sung before and then have stopped, or completely new to singing?
Good question. It's a mix.
Mhm.
Some people have always dreamed of singing, but in many cases, some of these women who have not sung were told when they were quite young that they had no voice, or that they should be quiet in school choirs, just pretend, don't like the sound of their voice. They're singing out of tune, which, could be. So there's those people who were always held down. And then there's the ones who used to sing and they stopped when they had families and looking after their parents, and now they'd like to come back to it. So it's a really lovely mix. And it's people from different parts of the world, and I love that. Different cultures and different ways of expressing themselves, different kinds of music. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you're in Montreal, aren't you?
Yes, yes, I
Yes. Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
The
So
cold
you
city.
Yeah. But it's great that you can connect to people all over the world and
It's
sing.
Oh yeah, it's well, since the pandemic we learned. Of course, I have been teaching online for many years, but not with the same gusto that people now come to online singing, because the pandemic taught us that all of this kind of communication is possible, and you can
Yes.
do it from all over the world, although, time zones do change, so you have to kind of
Hmm.
adapt. And to be honest, singing on Zoom like this, teaching on Zoom, is not as good as having someone right in front of you where you see the
Hmm.
whole body and you feel the whole person. But it's a very very welcome second opportunity for people who can't get to me and I can't go to them.
Yeah. And well, the pandemic, it actually had some benefits, didn't it? But
Well, in that regard, yeah, I think in
yeah.
terms of communication and cross country communication, and maybe, I don't know this for sure, maybe you do, communicating with your grandchildren when you're not allowed to them, or you can't see them. So they are there, they're not in the
Yes.
flesh, but there is the line of communication that's unbroken. So I
Hmm.
think that did teach us something good, yes.
Yes. And what about your journey as a singer? How did that begin?
I began singing very young. When I was 7, for some reason, I felt that that was what I was going to do. I had a vision of myself as a singer, and I begged my mom for singing lessons. Although in those days, singing, taking lessons at 7 was not something that people did. It was seen as being way too young. These days, we see these young children, young prodigies who are singing when they're very, very young. But back then, it wasn't done. And my mom, who loved music, gave in, and she said, okay, and gave me lessons. And so I got a very early start. And then after that, I was asked to sing in our church as the soloist, still very young at 11. I guess they were desperate that they would have an 11-year-old. Anyway, it was a great training ground for me to learn how to communicate specific, deep issues to a congregation. I think that probably helped me a lot in my later years of communication. So yeah, I started very young and went to university. And I always felt, though, when I was working on my own voice, that I would not really come to fruition as a singer until later in life. I saw myself very early on as a late bloomer. And that kind of came to pass, although I've performed for many years through my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. But I feel that it's in my 60s, I'm 70 now, that I've done probably my best singing ever. So I'm so
Yes.
grateful about that.
Yes, yes. So yeah, as we age, we can grow
We
and
can. Yeah.
really come into ourselves.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you can keep the vehicle, if you can keep the voice in a good state, I've been very lucky to be able to take lessons. Well, I don't think I've gone for maybe more than 3 or 4 months without a lesson in the last 40 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I've had a lot of lessons to keep the stability, to keep the range. For me, I wanted to be able to say whatever I wanted to say with the voice that I had, using all different colors and levels of emotion and gradients of color. And so that's been my personal goal for myself as a singer. And I try to help other singers to do that too.
Yeah. And part of your singing journey has involved singing in different languages. And
Oh, yes.
yes,
I love
so
that.
yes,
Yes,
so tell
true.
us about that.
Early on, I love Christmas music. I love Christmas, period. And it's not that I'm very religious. I'm not. I would call myself more of a spiritual. I know that's, who knows what that means, but a spiritual person rather than a religious person. But I love Christmas music. So I started giving Christmas concerts many years ago. Then when I moved to the States, I didn't do it quite as much. But in the last maybe 10 years, I give an annual Christmas concert in different places. And about 10 years ago, I decided that I was going to sing music from around the world. And so I sang in 10 different languages. And it was such a joy. Not that I speak 10 languages. Generally, when I give concerts, I sing in 3 languages: English, French, and Spanish. But for that one, I had coaches who coached me through Chinese, Hungarian, Russian, Ukrainian. And to have those words in that language in your mouth, even if it's not quite right, it's a very different world of singing when you're singing a different language. I can speak more confidently about English, French, and Spanish because I work on them a lot. When I sing Spanish, I feel the heat of that culture in the words, and I feel it like a different person. When I sing French, it's got a lot more perfume. French has got, it really is a perfumed language for me singing. And English is my native tongue, and it's a language of great meaning for me because I've lived with it since I was a kid. So
Yeah.
yeah, language is very important to me.
And what a gift to be able to communicate in several languages and have
Wonderful.
those differences
Yes,
within you.
it really, I think, connects you more deeply to other cultures if you can speak their language, even if it's not great. My Spanish is not, I'm not terribly fluent. My French is not terribly fluent, but good enough. And to have that kind of line of connection is really very special, especially on the planet at this time when we're trying to understand other cultures and be compassionate and kind of sense what other cultures are going through. I think it's a good time to have a lot of languages.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And what was I gonna ask you about next? About your fusion concerts. So
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Thank you. I wish I could interview you because I know you have a lot to say, but I'll just keep my questions to myself for now, for next time. Yes, I guess it's maybe a year ago that I was thinking about what I wanted to do in the next year. I had many years ago, I had heard this wonderful speaker, poetess, Maya Angelou, speak here in Montreal at one of our big halls. She just packed the hall. It was fabulous. And what she did was she combined all of her talents, or many of her gifts. Of course, first was poetry, but she also was a singer and a dancer. She moved very well, and she told stories very well. And she put all that together into a performance that I thought was stunning and so memorable to me. I remember saying to the woman beside me, I said, that's what I want to do in the future. I want to pull together different kinds of ways of communication with music being central and talk about things that have great meaning. And so not about a year ago I was thinking, what do I want to do? And I thought I really would love to do a Maya Angelou take on a concert. Of course, I'm not a poet, but in this concert it's called Imagine This, and it's a celebration of and an encouragement for remaining creative right to the end of life. So it's like finding ways to be increasingly and maintaining a sense of wonder and a sense of curiosity later in life. So it's a blend, a fusion of songs, a little bit of poetry, some stories, and a couple of quotes, and a little bit of really good science, easy to explain science about the neural stuff that goes on in our brain as we remain creative. Neurogenesis, creating new neurons. So I dabble a little bit of that science throughout it, so people will know that I have read about these things, and I base my judgments and my stories on something that we can see is actually happening in the brain. But mostly, the concert is songs, and it has, what I'm hoping for is that it has a sense of excitement and wonder about life. I think as we get older, I have noticed that older people can sort of lose the light in their eyes and in their being. And I don't want to do that personally. And so I've created this concert for me and for others who need that constant encouragement to say life is amazing and don't lose sight of that and just live in the past and live in the body aches and pains. I don't want to do that, and I'm hoping that others won't do that as we go on this ride together.
Yeah. And are you taking this concert on the road?
Well, I'm starting it at a residence here. It's quite an amazing residence where I just spoke with the woman who runs it yesterday, and I said, about what age group are we talking about here? Because I was thinking, between, I'd say 55 and 75. And she said, well, our average age, Barbara, is 90.
Wow.
I said, 90? My goodness. I said, okay, I may have to adapt a little bit. She said, well, just a minute. We have people here from 72 to 104. And she said, we have a weekly choir rehearsal. We have a writers group. We have a dance group. So this is a group of people who are actively keeping themselves involved in an enriched environment, which, keeps us younger. So I thought, okay, this is an interesting place to start. But in answer to your question, am I taking it on the road? Well, once I got a sense of how people react to this, I probably will tweak it a little bit, probably have to adapt it for different audiences. But yes, I would like to sing it for a wide variety of people, women's groups, maybe conferences on aging, and residences as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd like to take it to a lot of different places and a lot of different audiences.
Yeah, great. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe your newest project with Hildegarde?
Oh, that was something that I started, before the pandemic. I was reading about Hildegarde von Bingen, who was an abbess from the year 1098, and she was quite amazing in that she created a life for herself where she could learn many, many different things that really were kept for men at that time.
Mhm.
Literature, she was a writer, she was a doctor, she was a botanist, as well as being a woman of God. She also got herself into the position where she could criticize the priests for what they did and criticize the king even.
Yeah.
So I was very, very amazed. I thought it was awesome and kind of impressed with the power, the chutzpah, and the courage of a woman to do this. So I began to write about her, but I got to a point where I didn't like what I was doing. I set it aside, which I'd often do with songs. And maybe a couple of months ago, I thought, what am I going to do for uh, International Creative Day? I thought maybe I could bring back Hildegarde. So I listened again and I began to work on my computer, and it just flowed. It just flowed. Something I could not do 5 years ago. It opened up, and therein lies the power of letting things rest when they're not working, and having
Mhm.
the privilege and the opportunity just to let things grow. So yeah, if anybody who's watching, listening, is interested, on Facebook you can find, or I think I've put it on YouTube as well, Hildegarde von Bingen, by Barbara Lewis.
Oh,
It's I've tried to create an old feeling with the chords. I've layered voices in, I think I've got 10 layers of different voice layers and some old instruments. I'm trying to create something that gives you the sense of being way, way back then, but also a sense of wonder.
yeah. Well, I have watched it and it's really wonderful.
Oh, did
So
you? Oh, I'm
I
glad. Oh,
did
I'm
watch it.
glad.
Yes,
What did you
yes,
think? I mean, did you get a sense of the age of it, that it was kind of
I
old?
I did. Yes, and I got the sense of the beauty of this person, um, who could do who could be so connected to spirit, I think
Yes, and
is
yeah, I felt
yeah.
that too. Yeah, to
Hmm.
have that, the multi-dimensional connection, the spiritual one, plus also the very material, the nature, the healing of people,
Hmm.
looking into the body. She was a person who was able to talk with her clients, non-religious clients, about sexuality. She wrote
Yeah.
about sexuality. Imagine that, an abbess in 1098 writing about
Yes.
sexuality. I just was blown away by that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll end here. So thank you so much, Barbara. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well,
And
I enjoyed this too, and I'd love to talk with you more because I know you have a lot of stories to tell yourself and a great, great history of performance. One
okay.
day, could I
Yes.
interview you one day?
Oh, certainly you could. Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. I look forward to that, and thanks again.
Okay.